All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at something pretty wild, the story of an AI tool called Woodbury. And specifically, we're focusing on just 1 month, a single month where it went through this huge strategic evolution. It's pretty incredible. So let's get into it.
So this is the big question, right? How on earth does a really complex AI system not just, add a few features, but completely change its DNA at what feels like light speed? Honestly, the story of what Woodbury did in March is a total masterclass in moving fast with a clear vision.
And when I say fast, I am not kidding. Just look at this timeline. On March 5th, they shipped a much more resilient way to record what you do in a browser. A week later, scripts that can literally fix themselves. Then comes a brand new UI called App Mode, a full-blown migration to React, new workflow tools, and even video generation. All of this landed within weeks of each other. That kind of pace is just, wow.
But here's the thing. This wasn't just chaos. This wasn't just shipping for the sake of shipping. This quote from an executive summary right in the middle of all this is the absolute key to understanding everything. The team wasn't just piling on features, they were building stronger contracts. And what that really means is they were shifting from just writing code to designing systems with super clear enforceable rules that guarantee everything is stable and high quality. That one idea drove the entire month, and we can really see it in 3 core pillars.
So, that first pillar is all about resilience. Moving away from fragile code that breaks if you look at it funny, and building systems that are solid, predictable, and totally future-proof. And it all starts with something really fundamental: how the AI actually sees and interacts with a web page. Okay, this slide shows a massive change in thinking. The old way used these brittle CSS selectors. Think of it like giving someone directions by saying, turn left at the second blue car parked on the street. Well, the second that car drives away, your directions are completely useless. That's exactly what that div.css1a2b3c thing is. It's a temporary, machine-generated name that can change with the smallest website update. The new way uses stable ARIA targeting. ARIA is a web standard that gives things a real identity. So role button name submit is like saying turn left at the post office. The name is tied to its function, what a user actually sees and calls it. And that doesn't change just because you repaint the building. And they package this idea up into what they call an accessibility query. It's a really simple but powerful little string that locks onto an element's purpose, what it is, and what it's called. So the big takeaway here is that this creates an ID for automation that survives what's called UI churn. All the little visual tweaks and big redesigns that happen all the time. This new identifier just doesn't break, even if the whole look and feel of the site changes. And here are some perfect examples of how that works. A submit button is a submit button. A text box for an email address is just that. These identifiers are totally human readable, and they're tied to the function, which makes all the automations built with them incredibly tough. But being resilient isn't just about targeting the right things on a page. It's also about the whole process of creating these automated workflows, or pipelines. And this quote from a new internal document they created called the Pipeline Lifecycle Contract says it all. Just because an AI spit out some code, that doesn't mean the job is done. Not by a long shot. So to enforce that idea, they introduced this 4-stage contract. You don't just hit generate and walk away. First, you have to design the plan. Then you generate the output. But, and this is critical, you then have to validate and repair it. The system will automatically reject and fix broken or just plain weird code. And finally, you verify that it's not just valid, but that it actually runs and can be found by the system. It's basically a promise that every single pipeline is trustworthy. Okay, so let's move on to pillar number 2. This one builds directly on top of that rock-solid foundation of resilience. Because once things are stable, Woodbury could start to grow from just a tool for making scripts into a real extensible platform.
And the change here was huge. I mean, just look at the difference. On the left, you've got the old V1 way, one giant, messy JSON file that's basically a black box. It's got little bits of JavaScript hidden inside. It's hard to read, hard to track changes, a real pain. But on the right, you have the new V2 architecture, a proper, modern TypeScript codebase. Every step is its own file. You get a clear manifest, you get tests. It's a legitimate software project. For developers, this new architecture is an absolute game changer. You get your own TypeScript files, you get typed inputs and outputs, which means fewer bugs, and you have this amazing system that keeps the visual graph and the actual code perfectly in sync, no matter what you change. Each pipeline can now be its own Git repository, and it even gets auto-generated tests. This is all about treating automation like serious first-class software. And the whole system became truly modular through this new extension system. Now anyone can build a new feature by creating a package with a manifest, just like this one. See that Woodbury.provides field? An extension can now declare that it provides new tools for the AI or a new web UI. This is exactly how you open a platform up and let the community innovate on top of it.
Okay, so we've got resilience and we've got a true platform. The third and final pillar is what brings it all home. It's about taking this powerful engine and turning it from just a developer tool into a polished, fantastic application that puts the human user first.
And to do that, the team had to make a pretty drastic change. And it all started with this number, 6,224. Any ideas what that could be?
That is the number of lines of old JavaScript code for the UI that they deleted in a single day. They basically ripped out the entire old UI engine and replaced it with a modern React front end, all so they could build a real app-like experience.
And that led to this fundamental shift in how they thought about the product. A pipeline, that complex graph of nodes and logic, is a tool until it becomes an app. And this is the whole concept of app node. The idea is that a normal user shouldn't have to look at a complicated node graph to get something done. You can transform that pipeline's inputs and outputs into a simple, purpose-built application that anyone can use.
And they really went all out building this experience. The system is smart enough to group data into scenes. It gives you simple navigation. It uses these clever grids that automatically find things like titles and images. It even has super specialized components, like a video render panel and an audio inspector for dialogue. Now, none of that cool UI stuff would have been possible without this critical change under the hood. Before, all the data was just tossed into these flat arrays. It was like a shoebox full of unsorted photos. Finding anything was complicated and easy to break. They totally restructured it into a scene-grouped model, where each scene is like its own neat little photo album, holding all its related data together. That stable data structure was the secret sauce that let them build a fast, reliable UI on top.
So, when you put all three of these pillars together, the resilience, the platform, and the human-centric design, they don't just add up, they actually multiply each other. They create what you'd call a virtuous cycle. Here's how it works. You start with the resilient systems from Pillar 1. That provides a stable foundation. Then, that stability allows you to build an extensible platform on top, so developers can create all sorts of powerful new tools. And finally, those tools get presented to users through human-centric apps, which lets even non-technical people create and manage more complex automations, which of course then become part of that resilient system. See how it works? The cycle just feeds itself, getting stronger and stronger. And that brings us to this final thought. The story of Woodbury's crazy month of evolution really points to a fascinating future. As AI gets better and better at actually generating the code for us, maybe the most valuable human skill isn't about writing the perfect function anymore. Maybe it's about designing the perfect contract, the rules, the guarantees, the life cycle that makes sure that whatever the AI builds is not just clever, but also robust, reliable, and ultimately trustworthy. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.